When it was announced that John Woo was making another American action movie for the first time in 20 years, I was beyond hyped. How could this not be epic? Face Off and Broken Arrow were seminal movies of my childhood. Face Off is one of the greatest action movies of all time and it started my obsession with all things Nicolas Cage. It also contains the best pickup line in movie history.
If I were to let you suck my tongue, would you be grateful?
Works for me every single time. And where else can you see John Travolta get impaled with a nuclear warhead? And then there's Hard Target, pure sex. All John Woo movies, all about badass guys doing badass shit and looking badass while doing it. Again, how could this not be epic? John Woo's Silent Night is about a man named Brian whose son is killed on Christmas Eve during a gang shootout. Brian himself survives getting shot in the throat but loses the ability to talk. When police fail to arrest anyone responsible, because it's in California, Brian decides to get revenge and kill the men responsible for his son's murder. And he'll do it on Christmas Eve, the one-year anniversary of his son's murder. Silent Night is such a misfire of a movie that's actually sad. It doesn't even feel like a movie made by John Woo. It's too long and it's dull for long stretches of the movie. How could this be so bad? Let's start with the movie's biggest problem. There's no dialogue. Other than a radio playing at one point, not one character says anything in the entire movie. I think it would have worked fine if it was just Joel Kinnaman's character who didn't talk. He gets shot in the throat after all. But to have the rest of the cast not say anything either? Instead, the movie relies on everyone to communicate through text messages and head nods. It's an artistic decision and it doesn't work at all. In fact, it gets more irritating and makes less sense as the movie goes on. Another problem, the movie makes Brian borderline unlikable. The movie begins with him running through alleys chasing after gangbangers. You find out afterwards that his son's already been killed and died in his arms. Which means that Brian just left his son's dead body on his front lawn to run on foot after people in a car. Which to me seems really fucked up if you think about it. Then Brian himself gets shot in the throat chasing after the killers. It all feels like unnecessary bloat. If they wanted the son killed and Brian wounded as well, why not just do exactly what they did in John Woo's very own Face Off? You had Nicolas Cage shoot John Travolta through the back and hit his son at the same time. Travolta survives and wants revenge. It achieves the goal of the main character wanting revenge, but it's done way better. Woo should have just ripped off his own film. Then you've got Brian punishing his poor wife Saya by spending all his time in the garage getting drunk and completely ignoring her for the entire movie. This poor lady lost her son as well and now her husband won't even acknowledge her existence? In the first two acts of the movie, Brian comes off like the biggest asshole. It's the second act that feels like the part of the movie that drags on the worst. Brian comes up with his plan to kill the men responsible for his son's murder, but we watch him wait 7 months to go through with it. We even get a scene where Brian randomly runs into the gang leader who killed his son, and he gets knocked to the ground by him and humiliated. But Brian still does nothing. The only good part of the movie is Joel Kinnaman as Brian. Without him, the movie's unwatchable. His character doesn't say a word the entire film, but we've got no problem understanding what Brian is thinking or feeling at any time. Joel Kinnaman is great at showing his character's inexperience as well. Brian's not a natural fighter, and he actually has to learn how to fight and use guns. He gets his ass beat all throughout the movie and has to get by on his wits. He even looks scared during gunfights. He makes Brian feel like a real person. The rest of the cast is fine, but nothing special. Kid Cudi plays the main cop of the movie, but does almost nothing. Catalina Sandino Moreno plays Saya. She's actually an Academy Award nominated actress, and all she's given to do in the movie is cry repeatedly. The main villain is named Playa. I feel like they tried to make him unpredictable and frightening, but instead he just comes off as corny. At the end of the movie, while Brian's fighting his way to him, you just cut to these random shots of him dancing. I think the filmmakers wanted the character to look intimidating, like he's not worried at all about Brian coming after him, but instead just makes him look like a clown. The ending itself is abrupt as well. Remember the epic final battles at the end of Face Off and Broken Arrow? Well, there's nothing like that here. It's like John Woo realized the movie was running too long and just decided to cut to the credits as fast as he could. You don't get any kind of satisfying showdown between Brian and Player. You get all this build-up, and then the audience gets cheated out at the end. Silent Night just winds up being a giant disappointment more than anything else. This could have been John Woo returning to America to make the best action film of the year. Instead, just another forgettable movie.